friend. Thank you very much, Matthew, for being with us tonight, and we're eager to hear what you have to share.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Matthew, what can you share with us about maybe some of the history of Hanukkah, of Christmas, and any commonalities between those two?
Yes, there's a wonderful book that came out recently. In fact, I was asked to endorse it, and happily so, called Judaism for the World by Rabbi Arthur Green. And he has a wonderful chapter in there, short but very rich, about Hanukkah. And he summarizes it really in two words. The first word is light, and the second word is miracles. But he defines miracle as our capacity, our experience of wonder, our experience of marveling. And there are two marvels involved with the Hanukkah feast day. One is the marvel of the Maccabees, who he calls a rag-bag tribe, a small little tribe, who took on the empire, the descendants actually of Alexander's army, and defeated them. It's kind of like a David and Goliath story, actually. Little ragtag band who took on the empire and won. So that's like a miracle. It's a great marvel, as I say, not unlike David and Goliath. And Christians too were a ragtag little band of believers taking on the Roman Empire, or at least trying to survive under the Roman Empire in the first century. And of course, they didn't fare very well, because a number of them, as people know, were literally thrown to the lions, etc. But and then, of course, the second marvel to Hanukkah is the mystery and wonder and miracle of candles that burn for 8 days nonstop. Of course, this is time of candles and not electricity. So both of those things. Now, what Rabbi Green tells us is that the rabbi, you see, after the Maccabees won and so forth, sometime later, their descendants were not good Jews. The rabbis felt that they were lurching too far in the direction of Greek and Hellenistic culture and values. And so they didn't want to celebrate the experience of the expulsion of the Greek army that much, because they didn't want to keep this feast day going. But they were in a quandary, because the people really liked this holiday, if you will, this great feast day of celebrating this great victory. So the rabbis kind of then switched to emphasizing Hanukkah not as a victory over the Greeks, but regarding this miracle or wonder of the candles that burned. So that's very interesting to me. I think that the rabbis kind of reinvented the feast day, because they kind of had to, without sacrificing their own values and what they're trying to teach the people. Now, something is parallel with the Christmas, because Christmas actually didn't occur, the first official Christmas, till 336. That's the 4th century, of course. And that's because while the Christians were underground a lot for the first century and a half and fighting the empire, they didn't gather for a Christmas occasion really until the year 336. And that was after Constantine became emperor and then converted to Christianity. And then he made kind of a universal celebration. He also built the church at the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, supposedly where the spot where Jesus was born, and so forth. So I'm just pointing out that there's an evolution in these feast days, and yet both of them have in common the emphasis on light. And of course, that has a lot to do with the time of the year, the low point, if you will, the winter solstice, and the darkest time of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. And both feast days then have that in common, the celebration, the miracle of light. And of course, for the Jewish people, it was the light of the Hanukkah candle. And for the Christians, it was the light of the Christ coming at the darkest time of the year. So in the Hebrew tradition, you have this celebration of light. The Psalm 27 got Yahweh is my light and my salvation. And Psalm 36, in your light, we see light. And 2 Samuel, Yahweh shall be a light to you forever. And so, and then also the Torah is light, which is from Proverbs 6. So there's all this celebration of light. And in the Zohar, the mystical tradition of Judaism, the word Zohar means shining or brilliance. So that's the Jewish tradition. It's the celebration of light in the deepest sense of the word. Now, the Christian story also is all about light. Jesus saying, you be the light of the world. Do not hide your light under a bushel. And in John's gospel, Christ is saying, I am the light of the world, and be children of light. And in John's epistle, it says, God is light. So there's this very great consensus between among the Hanukkah celebrators and the Christmas celebrators around the glory of light. And in my study, One River, Many Wells, on all the world's spiritual traditions, I have a whole chapter dedicated to light, because I found that light is the most common synonym for divinity around the world. In all the world religions, it gets that kind of attention. And then if we add today's teaching from science, that matter is frozen light. That's postmodern science. That's David Bohm's words. Matter is frozen light. So to me, that's an incredible affirmation of what the religious traditions are saying here, that all matter contains light. We now know that there are photons, light waves, in every atom in the universe. So this, and then of course, Einstein said he wanted to spend his whole life doing nothing but studying light. Of course, Einstein is Jewish, comes from that Hanukkah tradition. And so this gathering around light is so powerful. And really, I interpret that scientific statement to be an affirmation of the real meaning of incarnation, that the light of divinity has joined the light of matter, where in fact, matter is light, frozen light, slow moving light. And that is the celebration of creation and of everything that Christmas stands for and that Hanukkah stands for. So that's kind of my brief pitch on the excitement of this holiday season around the deep and sacred teachings about light. And of course, in the Jewish tradition, in the Genesis 1, and we're told that light was the first creation. And that's not the sunlight, because the sun comes later in the evolution, the creation story in Genesis, but that there was light before the sun. It was a different kind of light. It was more like a divine and subtle and mysterious light. And this is a light that enlightens human beings. This is a light that visits us in the person of Christ, but in so many other ways as well. In fact, we can, in the bush that burned, that Moses experienced, we now know that every bush is a burning bush, because every bush contains this light that is the photons that you might say illuminate or make possible every atom in the universe.
I love everything that you just shared was so fascinating. And I am appreciating, I was raised in the Christian tradition, the double entendre of Jesus, the Christ consciousness representing the light to lighten up humanity, to bring love back into the world, and that it's also celebrated very close to the darkest day, close to the solstice, where, it's the darkest day of the year for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. So there is this beautiful double entendre that I've been in the awareness of. How would you, from your perspective, how do you differentiate between kind of the Jesus story and the Jesus myth and the Christ consciousness that he represents? And do you perceive that that Christ consciousness is actually what the second coming of Christ really means, that is available to each and every one of us as we attain that Christ consciousness?
Indeed. Yes, the story that embellishes Christmas in the Christian tradition is not literal history, but it's a powerful story that the early followers of Jesus created and embellished. And it's all about the cosmic Christ. It's all about the cosmos because there are angels in it. And the angels visit the shepherds who are the poorest of the poor because they, and also are highlighted in society because they smell like sheep. They're living with sheep literally 24 hours a day. And then you have the magi, who are these pagan philosophers, astrologers, or scientists, whatever you want to call them, following a star. Again, a cosmic moment. And then, of course, the actual birth of the Christ at a manger where the animals are present, where the animals feed. That's what a manger is. And so it's an incredible encircling gathering of all these cosmic forces. And the angels, the first word out of the mouth of the angels to these poorest of the poor, the sheep, the shepherd who smell like sheep, is peace to people of all people of goodwill. So it's very, very ecumenical. It's very embracing, and it's a promise of peace. And of course, there's also the present, the whole story of Herod wanting to kill Jesus, and therefore going out, sending his men out to kill all the newborn boys in the area. All this, that of course is a telling of how difficult the life of Jesus is going to be. It's kind of a warning about the coming crucifixion, because it's the same organization that is Herod and the Roman Empire that was going to do Jesus in 30 years from his birth among the animals. So, of course, these stories come so much to the early Christians, and all those who wrote the Christian Bible were Jews. And so this story of the oxen, for example, that's in Isaiah 1, and where it says that the ox and the donkey have known me, but the people have not. The people have turned their backs on me. So the early Christians, who were very knowledgeable, of course, of their Jewish roots and their Jewish scriptures, pulled all these stories and gathered them into this one very beautiful and archetypal story. And that's the point that, Marianne Woodman, the Jungian analyst, she says that she meets a lot of people who dream about the birth of a divine child. And she says the dreamer is astonished by its beauty, its capacity to talk with the wisdom of an elder. The old life dies, a new life is born, the soul finds a new world. That's the archetypal. That's why the Christmas story hangs around so long, not because it's literal historical truth, but because it taps into the archetypal yearnings of humankind, and that people do dream about a divine child. And what does that mean? And that is good news. And it is like a new start and a new beginning. So the historical Jesus, of course, teaches important truths, many of them drawn from his own Jewish background, such as compassion. Be you compassionate as your Creator in heaven is compassionate, Luke 6. but he gets that from his Jewish tradition, where compassion is the secret name for God. So he's letting out these secrets and making them available to everybody. And so I think that has a lot to do with the birth of the Christ, that you pick up on the values and that Jesus is teaching, but these are values that go far beyond his own circle, his own team, even his own Jewish heritage, where he does say near the end of his life to preach this good news to all the creatures, And so the cosmic Christ is a celebration of the light in all things. That's what John 1 says, that the Logos, the Word of God, is a light in all beings. So it's an absolute gathering of the universe. Now, of course, no one knew back then, or indeed up to 5 years ago, that there were 2 trillion galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars. That's a big universe. But in terms of light, the light is present in all those galaxies and all those stars. And that's how we know about them. And that's how we know about the 13.8 billion years that bring us here. And so the Christ is present in all of us. That light is present in us, but we humans, unlike the other creatures, have to work on polishing it up and paying attention to it. We get so distracted by our agendas and our problems that we wander from what it really means to be human. And I think that's really at the heart of Jesus' teaching, is causing us to remember what it means to be human. And to be human means we are capable of compassion. We are capable of peace. We are capable of forgiveness. We are capable of joy. And the cosmic Christ is a reminder that this energy is really one energy. As Judaism teaches, as Islam teaches, everything is one. And the oneness itself is God. That's the name for God. And that we humans are invited to undergo oneing, as Julian of Norwich calls it, that we can one with the divine. The other creatures one with the divine, but they don't have to think about it. And they don't wander so far as we do. Every dog, Thomas Merton, the great Catholic monk, whose picture actually is over my head here behind me, he says that every non-two-legged creature is a saint. It's only the humans who have to return because we wander so far, and we get so involved with our own narcissism and all the rest. So I think that the cosmic Christ is a reminder that we're part of a great whole, and the whole itself is holy. And of course, science reminds us, you take the film of the history of the universe and run it backwards, and it all goes back to one place, to a dot smaller than a zygote that burst into the fireball and into everything that's happened since. So it's all one. And that's the cosmic Christ. It's all one, it's all glorious, it's all glistening, it's all a gift. And that's what we're invited to fall in love with all over again in a season like this.
I am always so inspired when I talk to you, and when I listen to you, I should say.